Aloha, welcome to the Sandwich Island Social Network on the Porch, the longest running Southern California virtual gathering of Hawaiians and Hawaiians at heart. And my goodness gracious, we have folks that we've grown to know and love, and others that we've going, not so much.
Wait a minute. Don't say the name.
Especially when they don't wear pants.
I always get sucked into this. Hang on. Don't say the name.
I don't want to mention names, Wiedemeyer. So anyway, much love to all of you. It is a Memorial Day weekend, and I don't know. I have I don't know about you, but when somebody says Happy Memorial Day, to me, it doesn't sit well with me.
It doesn't resonate.
Because it's a day of remembrance of sacrifices made by men and women over hundreds of years of our nation's history. And I think every single one of us have family members, loved ones, neighbors, people that we know who have had sons or daughters or mothers, fathers, uncles, aunts, cousins who have lost their lives in service to our country. And so we remembered them and the sacrifices they made for all of us tonight. And so, I was looking back 1 year ago, we said, bring some of your favorite stories with you to the porch. It was 1 year ago. We said, hey, anybody got any mo'olelo? And some mo'olelos were funny stories, some were poignant stories, some were sad, some were just remembrances of loved ones. And I thought we'd do that tonight as well, in terms of things to remember, stories. We love telling stories. And I thought we'd just do some stories tonight on the porch. Things that come to mind if we think about Memorial Day. If you've got loved ones, memories about them. Or even funny stories, and just kind of sharing tonight. And I thought that might be a nice thing. Whether it be you sharing a recipe, that's good. Whether you sharing a motorcycle ride that you took, or whether it be your parents are going to a square dancing contest years ago. It's all part of the stories, man. Okay. And what I'd love to do is Uncle Larry always tells us some great stories, and he is watching one of his favorite movies. And I think, I was watching, there is, and then I'll get to Uncle Larry, but just real quickly, there's a Netflix, if any of you have Netflix, there is a Netflix series called the Kominsky Method, Komisky Method. And it is with Michael Douglas, the son of Kirk Douglas.
Right.
And Michael Douglas plays, acting coach who is in his mid-70s, and what the life changes that he's going through. And his partner on there is Alan Arkin, who is one of my favorite actors, who recently passed away. This is in a third season, so I was really glad they introduced season number 3 this past week. And so I sat this past Memorial Day weekend just binging on the entire third season of the Kominsky Method. So if you get a chance and you'd like to see it, it's funny. It's particularly if you are of a certain age, it hits right home. So the Kominsky Method on Netflix, I highly do recommend. What do you recommend, Uncle Larry?
Well, I tell you a story about my uncle on my mom's side, Milan, and Eberboy, and he was the third one in the big family. There's 15. So anyway, in 1944, I guess, or early 45, he went to Germany, and
Uncle Johnny?
No, Uncle Willie.
Oh,
So when he came back, he used to go around with my dad, and then Korean War broke out 4 or 5 years later, as you guys know, in 1950. So he got back to they called him back to the Korean War.
Ooh.
Anyway, we found out, my mom told me that he left a son in Germany. So half German, half, local boy. So all the years passed, I never met him. And then he found his way to New York from Germany, immigrated to the United States, and he stayed in New York for a while. Then he came to Hawaii because he wanted to find his roots. But I was in the Air Force already, so I never got to see him. So then the years passed, and then Hetty and I was on vacation on the Big Island and waiting for a flight to go back to Honolulu. And I'm reading the paper and I look at the obituaries and I see William
Milan.
funeral. I said, hey, it is my uncle. So we fly to Hawaii. Naturally, we go to
To the service.
the services. And guess what? For the first time in my life, I met my cousin,
Wow.
half German. I was over 60 years old. He's about 5 years younger than me. So he was in his late 50s. I was in my early 60s, whatever. And that's amazing, And he said, oh, I heard about you. You Uncle Lawrence's son. I said, yeah. But all those years, my dad used to make jokes, about the enemies are allies now, like Germany and Japan. How wars go. The war ends and then they become your allies and your allies become your enemies in this crazy world we live in. But my dad knew a lot of people on the 442nd and they went to Italy and Germany. But anyway, my uncle passed, went to the services, and my auntie, his sister, seen me, and she was so surprised. She never realized I'd be there. But just so happened, I was in the Big Island, and I read the obituary. But that is so weird. All these years, and I see my first cousin, finally. And went to the services, and the Army has a special thing where before the end of the service, you're not allowed. You got to go, and the Army takes care of its own, But Germany, my dad knew a lot of buddies.
Yeah. It's a story.
Yeah.
Anyway, you don't see your cousin all your life. You finally see him. Yeah, my dad had 3, 4 kids already, and he was 33, 34 years old, just passed. But he used to work at the harbor, and the Navy used to like subcontract because Pearl Harbor got so full, so they used to unload ammunition ships. My dad, at Honolulu Harbor. I asked him a question one time. Where were you Sunday morning, December 7th? My mom told me where I was at. I was out playing in the backyard. But my dad was at work at Honolulu Airport, and they seen the red meatballs fly over, and head toward Pearl Harbor, which is 3, 4 miles away. Boom, 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 heard all that stuff. And the boss came and said, everybody go home. So my dad went home, and we lived close to the University of Hawaii, off Metcalf. Metcalf is right off University of Hawaii. But anyway, a lot of memories. I lost cousins. War is something that occurs, and I guess we can't rid of it because that's since the beginning of mankind. Cain and Abel, they say. But it's tough when you lose somebody close to you or a relative, and even a good friend. And any person that says any guy who served our country. Thank you.
Absolutely, Uncle. Thank you for sharing that, Uncle. Thank you for sharing that. And that is the heart and soul of Memorial Day, right? Remembering loved ones, friends, family that made the ultimate sacrifice. And no matter what your view on your political views or whatever, you separate all of that, and we're talking about lives lived and lives lost, right? And that's what touches all of us, as well. Yeah. Thank you for that, Uncle Larry. And I'm sure you as well, Auntie Hetty, have had a family. And
Memorial Day has always been one I was taught to remember, revere, and respect. I remember that. And I remember making plumeria lei and taking it to, we lived right across St. John's Church. So, and taking it to the church, to all of the graves that had flags on it. And as a little girl, when you're 6, 7 years old, I remember doing that. Um, and I remember a lot of when I was growing up, about Punch Bowl and how they put all the flags on each of the, and I remember uh, watching on television. I used to watch on television all the time the ceremony at Arlington. That's always touching. My immediate family, I didn't have anyone who perished, but my brother's first wife, her her brother was killed in Vietnam.
In-laws.
His in-laws, yeah,
Yeah.
and he's buried at Punch Bowl. So my brother always goes up to decorate his grave. And the one I remember the most is uh, Kimo. He was the first Hawaiian that perished in the Vietnam War, and he was pretty well memorialized. And in fact, there's a park in Maryland that is named after him. And so he was a year before me in Farrington, and a really, really, really nice guy. And I got to go to the wall and find his name, and I made pencil etching of Kimo's name. Yeah, so that's my recollection of
Yeah.
Memorial.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the 3 R's: remember, revere, respect.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I had an opportunity to go several years ago to the Vietnam Wall as well, and I had lost a classmate of mine who, right after graduation, we graduated in June. He was by July. He was already, going through basic training already and the whole thing, and by October he was already um, in Vietnam. And so the same year as the graduation, we graduate 65, and by October, late October, he was killed. And I was thinking about him, and I hadn't thought about him, but just because I thought I need to go, see if I can see his name. That just, and so
Yeah.
there's a book over there. You go, and then you get the location where it's at, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I found his name, and I read, in October 1965, yeah, and I started to get chicken skin, and I was having a gout attack. I could hardly walk. So my daughter said, I can find it. I can find it. I said, you go, girl. So she took her paper and got the pencil and went down to the wall. And then she came back about 10, 15 minutes later, and it just welled up inside of me, because all pictures of us guys, joking around, and, he was from Papakulea, and so I always remember him, and the sacrifices that he made as well, and a good close friend, a classmate of mine as well. Anyone else like to share any stories, or we can enjoy more recollections of
Well, my dad. I'm sorry. You're gonna go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, when I graduated 66, and one of my classmates enlisted in the Marine Corps right after graduation and went to Vietnam, and he wrote everybody letters. He was coming home, and he was supposed to be arriving on a certain day, and the day before he was supposed to board the plane to come home, he was killed.
Wow.
So that was the first one of 22 out of my class.
Wow.
That conflict. But, on a brighter side, every year, we're always involved with Memorial Day remembrance events going on all over at the Huntington Beach Pier or wherever. But this year was kind of different. And so this morning we went over Home Depot, and I bought, instead of like 4 bunches of colored carnations, I bought like 8. Don't ask me why, but I bought 8. And we get to Mom and Dad's grave, and of all the flags are all over the place. Well, there's double headstone on a granite. The man and woman were both veterans. There was no flag on their
Oh,
place. And mom and dad didn't have a big flag. They had two small ones that we had put there at Easter. So, of course, we always carry extra flags. So we took care of that. And I always noticed at that particular grave site, I never see any flowers in the vase or nothing. So I had plenty flowers. So after I took care of mom and dad and grandma, I had my husband twist the cup up, and we put water and the preservative, and then I stuck a bunch of flowers in that. So now I've got blue ink from the dye of the blue carnations. I mean, oh, bad, really bad. So I go over to the spigot and washing my hands, and as I'm walking back, there's a PFC that died in Korea, and he didn't have a flag. And he's only 3 down from my mom and dad. So we, of course, took the flag and stuck that there. And then my husband dug out the urn thing, and I put flowers in his. And I thought, there's a reason why I bought so many flowers today.
Wow.
But it was, and normally they're really good about that stuff. And like I say, I have never noticed him ever having a flag, this PFC, on his grave, ever. So I didn't even know that there was a veteran 2 down from mom and dad on the other side. But yeah, that was very sentimental for me today.
Thanks for sharing that. Thank you, Kalila.
And then, of course, you saw my posting with all the flags around the driveway.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice.
So, yeah, it was special. But it was different this time since Papa's not here to go to the festivity and the memorial services that they have all over the place, like we always did.
right.
So it was a little disconnected.
Yeah. You're getting some
Sound fading in.
sounds. Is that someone
Feedback.
background from someone? It stopped right now. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody muted themselves, or we had a little feedback sound over there. Thank you for sharing that, Tuila. I think as a kid, I remember the Memorial Day parades they used to have, which was always kind of exciting because the whole community would turn out, right? And then you would have the cadets marching, and all the different. What did they have? The
ROTC. I marched.
Yeah, all the ROTC
Sponsor.
groups, right?
Yeah.
And then the Shriners would come, the guys with that, and I never knew what that was called. Did you realize that hat they wear is called a fez, F-E-Z?
Yes.
I didn't know what that was. I thought it was like a bucket they put on their head.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's taken from the Middle Eastern thing.
And they ride around their scooters, and then stuff. And I said, well, those guys running around with their buckets on their head. It's kind of a silly group there. And then
it's the Order of the Mystic Shrine.
Is that what it is?
Because a lot of the stuff that they do is from Egyptian time period and that type of thing.
Yeah. So those are my memories of a Memorial Day, and they're throwing candies. Sometimes they're throwing candies and throwing stuff from the Jeep, and then guys from Schofield, and I don't think they had tanks in there, but they did have
they had tanks. They had tanks. Yeah. Tanks and trucks. Yeah.
Heavy equipment, right? Yeah. And we sit on the sidewalk and just wait. And we got there early, and you couple your space over there with your chair, And I was the one carrying the cooler. I got to sit on the cooler, and then I'm the one that pass out the sodas and the cold drinks and stuff. But,
Musubi.
Yeah, as a kid. Thank you, Tuila, for sharing that. Stan.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Stan.
I'm sorry. I'll just stand. It's okay. Go ahead.
Well, back in 41, obviously I wasn't here. I don't think Kevin was either. My father was in Hawaii during the attacks. He heard the planes fly over, and he went inside, grabbed my grandfather's binoculars. Went up on the roof because he was playing stickball on a Sunday, which you're supposed to go to church, but that's it. I ain't going to church. I'm staying home. And so they went. The whole family went to church, and he was the only one playing stickball with the other hoodlums that were in his neighborhood. And I think he said he lived on McCarson, wherever the heck that is. I don't know because it doesn't sound familiar. Anyway, he was out there on the roof watching these guys go down to Pearl Harbor. Well, apparently, at the same time, he didn't know my grandfather on my mom's side. My grandfather was blowing off the dock into the water because he was a shore patrol. And when he got out of the water, he was kind of upset because his whole uniform was wet. So he started peeling off the clothes and started running for the dock. And that's exactly when everything kind of broke out. He was saying, my grandfather was saying everything was just chaos. They didn't know what was coming from where, and they didn't know the second wave was coming. They didn't know anything. They were just trying to grab a gun and shoot. I think it was a couple days after the whole attack was done. My grandfather was a diver, regular diver in his civilian life. And he said, yeah, I'm going to go and dive for the Navy. So they put him in a dry suit. And, you know, the diving suits were huge back then. They were made out of canvas. They put lead in there, so you sink right to the bottom and just walk, no problem. He had this big helmet, and it was pretty cool. I have a picture, and I don't know where I put it, of him coming out of the water, and he was actually on the Arizona trying to find ways to get guys out.
Oh, wow.
He said by this time there was nothing left except for bodies. He could not get into the hatches because they were all sealed.
Right.
And he came out the first time because he spent, I don't know how many hours down there. And it's unlimited because you got the air hose already hooked up to the helmet and you go freely. He came up and his whole body was covered in black. All oil and stuff that was on him. And he said he was completely black. He went in there white because he had a brand new canvas suit. But when he came out, he was all covered in black. It took him 4 days to try to figure out what he wanted to do next. And he said, well, I want to join the deep sea diving guys. So he went from being a shore patrol to the deep sea diving guys. Because I guess, I don't know how he did that, but they transferred him straight across. That's what he told me. And he was a deep sea diver for 34 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was that one. My other grandfather on my mom's side was actually a pilot at the time. And he wasn't stationed down there. He was on Kauai, actually. And he was called to fly over to Oahu to go assess the damage and see if he can get planes in there. Well, I don't know if there was any runways enough that he could do that, but he landed at Kuloa Ranch. Kuloa Ranch had a strip, and it was just for P-51s.
Yeah.
And it was a metal strip, what do they call those things? Doggone it. It's like a cage they put down, and it's like a trackway, and he just tracked all the way down there. And when he got out, there was a Jeep waiting for him. They went right to Pearl, and they were just like, wow, what happened here? And they didn't know either. They didn't know what was going on. So that's the memory I have of him sitting around telling stories like that. And then my uncle, he's a Kalohi one. And they call me Kalohi, but I'm really not. I'm a, sweet kind of guy. I wouldn't make any kind of trouble, but my uncle apparently went into the Marine Corps because he liked the uniform colors. He said everybody was cool if you wore a Marine color, and he wanted the dress blues. So he went in there, and I guess back in the day, he said he had to pay for the dress blues. I don't know if that's true because I had no clue. He said he was $4 short of buying his dress blues, so his sergeant pitched in $4 for him. But in order for him to get the $4, he had to go on the trail and run the trail again with full pack and everything because he should have saved the $4 instead of going out drinking. Now, my uncle will deny all this because that's the way my uncle is. Oh, I wasn't drinking. Well, one night he went out drinking, came back the next day. He had a big shiner on his lip, and his lip was all cut up. And they asked him what happened. He goes, well, I ran into a door. Well, he got in a fight downtown, and luckily he escaped with that. So, but that's the only memories I have of him, telling stories like that. My dad was in the Korean War conflict, and he was an artillery group, the 25th. And he said he stayed over there and hated every second of it. So that's my dad's story. I couldn't join because apparently they lost my records. I don't know how that happened. So next best thing was going to the police force. That's where I was. So. But yeah, that's the only stories I remember of him telling actual stories of this memory day. So I call it memory day. I don't call it anything else. And that's what I call it. This memory day for remembering stuff like that. So
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Stan.
that's my story.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I just saw something in the paper, a Honolulu paper, and I was, you know, I was just scrolling through some stuff, and I wanted to go back and read the details on it. I wondered if anybody saw that in the Honolulu paper within the last week or so involving the USS Arizona, how they were going to, there were some uh, apparently remains of unknown soldiers that they were going to what is it when you
Resume the bodies.
intern the bodies from
Right.
the grave and place them inside the Arizona. Did anybody see that? You
Yes.
saw that, Stanford? That article?
The
I didn't
act-
see the article, but I know that people that served on the Arizona, they can be interned with their crewmates.
yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
In
that
fact,
was,
the U.S. Geological Society, along with the U.S. Forestry Service, take divers and go down and
Right.
clean the plaque. There's a plaque down there as well, and they clean the plaque, and then they put the urn inside the ship as well. Yeah, I did know that. Yep.
so apparently they have some remains of some soldiers, and they're doing it for, I don't know, what is the first time in a long time, but it was quite an article, and I never went back to finish reading on it, but I was just thinking about it as we were talking about this, and I thought that was interesting.
Well, there's not too many left of Pearl survivors.
Yeah,
I know that much. So
Yeah.
they're getting very thin wherever you go, and a lot of them are already turned to other places. But if you find a guy that wants to go with his shipmates, hey, you know, I say just do it. Why red tape them? Just go. You know. So,
there's
Okay, it's funny that you mentioned that because, I say about a month ago, there was a rerun of NCIS, and there was a Navy veteran that had survived from the Arizona, and he and, of course, Gibbs became really good friends because he knew Gibbs' dad or something of that nature, and he was terminally ill, and his last wish was to be buried on the Arizona with his shipmates because somehow he got off the ship. He survived.
I'm sorry.
And they went through a lot of red tape in Washington at the Pentagon to get that done. And then Gibbs brought his urn back to the Arizona. And the last scene in the whole of this thing is where the Navy personnel is taking the ashes from Gibbs and reverently coming down the aisle. And then there's divers waiting for him, and the guy leans over and hands the divers the ashes. Of course, the taps are blowing and the whole 9 yards.
yeah,
So I know it happens because
It
it wouldn't
does.
have been in the series.
interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Anyone else like to share some stories or some thoughts here as we
Well, every Memorial Day since the late 90s, I actually think of a friend. I used to be a musician for a halau in Burbank, Glendale, Burbank, and my best friend, he lived in Whittier. We were both in the halau band, and we would just hang out on Fridays and Saturdays. I'll spend the night over at his house, be drinking a little beer, playing music and all that. And so there was this one guy in the halau. Well, he was a husband of one of the dancers. His name was we called him Kiki Boy because his wife's name was Keikilani also. So we called him Kiki Boy, Kiki Girl. So he asked, "Hey, can I join you guys in playing ukulele and all that?" It's like, "Yeah, bring an instrument. Come hang out with us." And so we'd be playing and all that. And we'd be talking story and whatnot. And he was in the Army National Guard. And when the war against Iraq and Afghanistan happened, he got called up and had to go to I think it was Afghanistan in the early parts. And he was part of a helicopter crew. And he was really concerned because he said, I think I'm going to be called up, but and he just had a kid, you know, just a newborn, and he goes, oh man, I'm really worried. I might not come back. And we're like, oh, come on, you know, you're all right. You serve on you're like on the ground crew and all that, right? He goes, yeah. So, oh, well, you'll be on base and all that. You should be fine. And then he got deployed to Afghanistan, and yeah, it was like, I think it was like 5 months after we talked and all that, and he finally told us, oh man, I'm activated. I gotta go. It's like, all right. So, you know, we thought nothing of it. Then when he was in theater 2 months later, he died. He was, they had to go check out the helicopters, and they were in a formation at night, and they collided.
Jeez.
And so there were
Like,
2 helicopters involved. Everybody perished. So it was like 9 people passed away.
Jeez.
And when we heard about it, we're like, what? We were in total shock. Here's, you know, his wife just gave birth. Kids only what, like 2-3 months old. And man, it hit us hard. I mean, you know, just imagine 5 months earlier, here we are sitting back in the living room, playing Hawaiian music, having a good time. And then the next thing we know is like, Kiki Boy passed away. And we were in total shock. We're like, my buddy and I, we were like kind of in denial. It's like, no, you got to be joking. This is a joke. And sure enough, we looked it up, and it's like, yeah, he passed away. So yeah, every Memorial Day, it's kind of like in the back of my mind. I don't like to bring it up forward, but you know, I think of him, you know, because it was a total shock. I mean, he was such a nice guy. I mean, he would do anything for you, you know. Every time he would come over, he'll say, oh, you want me to bring something? It's like, no need. We got everything. We always get everything, so no need. He would always bring something, you know. He said, oh, I cannot come empty-handed. I say, bruh, just come over, you know, just bring the only thing that is required is you and your instrument. That's it. We get everything. But yeah, he was such a nice guy. And then for that to happen, and, you know, in such a short time in theater and everything, and leaving behind a kid, that was like a big shock. Yeah.
Have you kept up with the family, or how are they doing, or no?
No, because we didn't even know when the funeral was and all that, and by the time we found out, it was all done.
Yeah.
It was all done and everything. I think they were from Maui. They met in Maui, got married there, and then moved out to Whittier. And I think after he passed away, she moved back to be with family and all that. Sure. Yeah. But, you know, hearing the stories about World War II and all that, you know, it brings back stories that my grandfather and my father told me, because they lived in Wahiawa. And yeah, my grandfather was out tending the yard. No, he was headed to work. He owned a gas station. The remnants of the gas station is there. Now it's a used car lot, but in Wahiawa, on the corner of California Avenue and Kamehameha Highway, grandfather opened up a service station and all that, and retired there. But he was headed to work and everything. And then my dad was outside playing in the yard, and they hear all these explosions because, you know, Schofield Barracks and Wheeler Field was not too far away. And they're seeing all this smoke and all that. They hear all this commotion. And all of a sudden, everybody's coming out of their house, and they're looking up in the sky and says, why are you doing war games on a Sunday? Mm-hmm. Oh, look, so realistic. It even has Japanese markings, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nobody knew. And then when they saw, like, my dad was telling me that he saw the planes shooting. You can see the tracers. And they're like, why are they firing all the way out here? Why are they firing live ammunition? And then, my dad told me that, as kids, they see all the shells fall down and they're like picking it up and all that. And it was like, oh, wow, this is so realistic. They're shooting ammunition too. Then finally they hear on the radio that, Hawaii is under attack and all that. And then the bad part, then they had lights out, that night. But then the second day, December 8th, FBI shows up at my grandfather's house, and they searched the house and all that. And I was really surprised that my grandfather didn't get thrown in jail, because he was one of the community leaders. In fact, at the Honganji and Wahiawa, they took away all the priests, the Sunday school teachers and the principal, the Japanese school teachers and all that. And so the keys was left to my grandfather to take care of the temple. And my grandfather was actually waiting for the FBI to come and arrest him, because he get telephone calls from all these other people saying, the wives would call my grandfather and says, my husband going to jail, and they were like school principals and community leaders. And my grandfather was one of the community leaders, but they didn't touch him. I think maybe because he owned a business and it was essential, it was a gas station. There was only 2 gas stations in Wahiawa back then. So if he gets arrested and all that, they're closed and there's only one. And then my dad would tell me, used to have all these signs, speak English, no Japanese, all over the. So, and then it was real interesting to hear my dad's side of the story, because my dad would tell me, during the war, we everything was on rations, and we couldn't get eggs, so we got chickens to get eggs and all that. It was just like, you're so lucky, you're so lucky you don't have to face all these rations. Then my mom, she was in Japan during the war. Ouch. And she goes, you think you face hardships? You're lucky you got eggs. You're lucky you got a chicken. So we were on rations from before Japan entered the Second World War with the U.S., because Japan was at war in China in the 30s. Yeah. So from then on, they were rationed. The only time my mom saw white rice was before the war as a little child, and then on December 7th, they got a handful of white rice because they was celebrating their victory at Pearl Harbor. And then, so my mom would tell me all of her stories of how they suffered during the war, to the point where my uncle, her youngest brother, my mom had to find food for him because they were starving. The only thing she could find that was edible was chicken feed. I said, here, eat this. If the chickens can eat it, you can eat it too. You'll survive. But she would tell me all these different stories. So it was interesting to see, the U.S. side and then the Japanese side, and how, my grandmother, she could have been arrested in Japan, because she would openly say, at the rate we're going and and we can barely get food, we're going to lose the war. There's no way we can survive this war. But luckily, my grandfather was in the military police. So the secret police couldn't really touch, because then my grandfather would have basically power over them. But hearing all these different war stories and the horrors, both with civilian and military, and all the, I was telling the little one, because we were watching this war movie, and she goes, "That's not fair." And I was like, there is no fair in war.
Yeah.
It's win or lose. It's live or die. That's how war is. You know, there is no fair. You do whatever it takes to win or to survive. It's unfortunate that you see the ugliness of humanity, you know, in war.
Exactly.
But, you know, and then I told her I would share stories that my mother would tell me, you know, of like during the American occupation and all that. And, you know, my daughter says, well, how come that's not in the history books? I said, history is written by the victors. It's not written by the ones that lose, you know. So I encouraged her, anytime you read a story like nonfiction, a historical thing, I said, don't just take one story. Always look at other stories, even look at the losing side and see their perspective. And I said, it is all about perspective. It's not, sometimes it's not the truth. It's what one person believes in or another person believes in, but you got to fill in the blanks yourself. You know, it's unfortunate that you have to do that, but you know.
Yeah.
It's history.
And I've always been a firm believer in these mo'olelo, these stories that are not in the books need to be retold to our mo'opuna, to our keiki. Pass those along, because if we don't, then they pass with us when we pass. And so many rich stories, mo'olelo, are being lost, right? Because they're not being kept or written down or documented in some way. And you're absolutely correct, Stanford. These stories need to be told, and much of the stories that are there now are, I call, revisionist stories. And case in point, you know, the history of Hawaii and the annexation and all of that were written from a very different point of view. And so it's nice now, right, that these stories are coming out. You know, you're getting old when you start telling a story by saying to your friends, stop me if I told you this story already. Okay, so it's going to be one of those. I had a chance to meet the actor Pat Morita. Pat Morita was Arnold in Happy Days. He was Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid. He was born in California, but loved Hawaii so much. And he would vacation in Hawaii, and he loved playing softball. And he joined the Makuli League of the out in Makali, the Mo'iliili area, you know, across from where Chunky's used to be. There was a baseball park, yeah?
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know
Mo'iliili
if it's still
Field.
there or not, right?
It's still there.
Still there.
Honolulu Stadium, kitty corner from it.
Yeah, exactly, Uncle Larry. And so that used to be a place where all of the 442nd guys or all of the, you know, would go play baseball. And he got in with them. And he was treated like a local, you know, because Japanese, like a local Japanese, although he was a California born. And he just loved coming to Hawaii, hanging out with the guys, go down, and have coffee with the guys, hang out at the coffee shops. At the time, I was just starting out in comedy. So this was like the late 80s, early 90s. And I had an agent who handled a bunch of talent. Among them was Booga Booga, Andy Bumatai, you know, Rob Reppinger, James Benton. And he saw me at an open mic with Andy one day, and he said, hey, you know, I like to book you. And I said, hey, good. He said, you know, I also have a friend that comes and visits, I'd like you to meet him, you know. And I said, okay. So we went was downtown off of Fort Street Mall. There was a, I'm trying to remember the name of the place, but it was a very popular place, hangout place. And we walk in, and there's Pat Morita sitting in a booth over there. And I was going, oh my goodness, Mr. Morita, call me Pat. You know, nice to meet you, you know. And so we talking story. And as we're talking story, talking about funny stories regarding Pearl Harbor, he said one year he was vacationing in Hawaii, playing softball, and he always did his vacation in line with whenever they had tournaments and stuff and whatever. So he was just having a ball. And he gets a call, Pat Morita gets a call from his agent in LA. And his agent says, hey, there's a comic that was booked for a show at the Hilton Hawaiian Village Dome. Remember the Dome? And he says, and so the guy got sick, and it is tomorrow night. It's too late for me to even get somebody to fly in, whatever. Since you're there, would you like the gig? And, obviously it's a paying gig. And, so Pat goes, hey, since I'm here, I'm having fun. If I can just do a side gig that I hadn't planned, make some extra money, no problem. So he said, yes, absolutely. No problem. So he says, fine. And so the agent gives him the name of the woman and the time and where it is and all that. So he's all excited. And he was involved with some dinners and some stuff. So he rolls over to the Hilton Hawaiian Village Dome. He asks for the wahine. They direct him to the backstage, and he said, okay, he's all set to go. And, for him, he didn't have to think about what he was going to say or nothing, because he's been doing it for so long. He's a natural, right, getting out on the stage, because he started out as a stand-up comedian before he got into acting and Karate Kid and all that. He was known as the hip nip was what he would go by. The HIP NIP, the hip nip is what he would call himself. And you would see advertising for Pat Morita, the hip nip, he was called. So he's backstage, he's and getting ready, and the place is just packed, and he's backstage over there. So he says to the gal, he goes, oh, by the way, you got a packed house. She goes, oh yeah, it's a packed house. She goes, yeah, it's a convention. And he goes, oh, that's great. What is the convention? She says to him, it's the Pearl Harbor, Arizona Survivor Convention.
Oh, shoot.
True story. True story. Pat says, I almost peed my pants. He's going, what the? I didn't even think to ask what the convention or who the audience was, right?
Yeah.
And as he's processing this, he hears the announcer going, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Pat Morita. And so he walks on stage, and of course the spotlight's on him. It's all dark, all black. He cannot see anything out over there. And he said you could hear a pin drop, right? He's standing there. He's going, how am I gonna get myself out of here alive? He says. So he looks around. He goes like this. I can't see you, but I want to say before we begin, I want to just say one thing. Sorry about Pearl Harbor. And there's seemed like forever, just dead silence. And all of a sudden the laughter starts and it just rolls through the whole audience. The applause starts. They turn on the house lights and there's a standing ovation. He goes, but there were guys with wheelchairs up front. They couldn't stand, but they were all making their hands like this, like that. And just roaring, and I said, oh my goodness, Pat, that is genius. He goes, well, what else could I do? So here's a tip for you, Kamaka, when you're doing comedy, always recognize the elephant in the room. And I never forgot that tip from Pat Morita about comedy. But for him it was, sorry about Pearl Harbor, man.
Kevin, be aware, because he gonna talk about you next. Watch out.
I was just gonna say real quick to Uncle Larry, and when he comes back, one name that stands out in my mind as an actor, and this may be beyond the generations of you young people we admire and Mr. Gomes, is Audie Murphy.
I know who he is. Yeah, my dad watches TV like that all the time.
Yeah,
Audie Murphy Dance Studios. Audie Murphy Dance Studios.
Not Audie.
I know, I just teasing.
Oh, okay.
No, not Arthur Murray. Not Arthur Murray.
Not Atta. Not Atta. The other guy.
Not Arthur
Oh,
Murray.
the other guy.
Not Atta.
Audie Murphy.
Audie
Murphy.
Who? Who that? Augie who? Augie who?
Oh.
Oh.
According to our Wikipedia here talks about Audie Murphy as the most
Rated.
the most decorated American combat soldier of World War II. He received every military combat award of valor available from the U.S. Army, as well as French and Belgian awards for heroism. And he was able to parlay that.
Talking about Audie Murphy.
Oh, yeah, he was able to parlay, that notoriety into a movie career as an actor, and he did a whole bunch of war movies, and he was very popular through the 40s and the 50s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Audie Murphy.
Audie Murphy.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Any other mo'olelo, any other stories over here you'd like to share here tonight?
Well, today in the patio, I did nothing. Again, just like another other day. But I have a sub that's 4'5", and it's huge. I'm doing it for a 90-year-old, coming up 90-year-old veteran. He was in Korea for 2 tours, and then went to the Vietnam conflict for 3 more tours, on board of a submarine called the USS Rock.
Huh.
Now, in the Vietnam War, it wasn't actually a sub like, shoot the torpedoes and all that stuff. It wasn't like that. It was a electronic warfare kind of submarine. And what that is actually he looks for SAM sites, from ground to air missiles, when they shoot it from the ground to the air. Because apparently they got their North Vietnamese, try this again. The NVA got equipment from the Russian, so to say, and they were putting SAM sites up everywhere because McNamara, which was the
Secretary of Defense.
Secretary
of Defense, thank you. I just like your slick hair. And he said, we will not bomb any SAM sites in that area. So when the pilots went out, they had these little points of interest you couldn't touch. That's what the special said. And
SAM sites are surface to air missile sites.
I'm sorry, yes.
Just
so anyway, this submarine, along with the airfare, there's an airfare that also did that too. But this SAM sites were actually detected by the submarines that were in the area. And the USS Rock just happened to be stationed there for the entire war. Nobody knew about it. They were there. So I'm building this 4'5" piece of plastic that weighs about 10 pounds. And I'm thinking about stuff that's going on in this submarine that I have no clue about. And I'm like, wow, these guys, it wasn't like, I'm in a big nuclear submarine where you can actually walk around and, you can do jogging down the track. You can't do that in this thing. Your hatch is so small that you got to go in 1 foot and then dig in and then come back out. I mean, that's how small the hatch was to get from one compartment to another. Not like just walking down the hallway, no problem, and like the big ones now. The big ones have these bays with all these nuclear missiles in it, and these guys are doing laps because they have a room to run around. You don't run around in those things. The only time you actually got exercise was when you porpoised out and you had to come up on deck and actually perform a duty, and they let you breathe for a couple hours. That's it, and they charge the batteries. So it's really kind of interesting to see this stuff, and I never heard of the USS Rock. Of course, I'm an aircraft crazy nut, and I don't know much about subs. And it was something else. I was doing a railing, and it had string that was, oh my God, it called line, not string, but it's so thin I could barely even touch it. So I got my big goggles on, and I'm going through this thing. And on the radio that I'm listening to, it comes out with, for some reason, I was listening to 70s music. And I don't know who that group is because I don't listen to that either. But it's War. What is it good for? War. Good God. And that came on. I'm like, man, I just flipped back to Vietnam. Hang on a minute. I was like, wow. But it was something else. But I was doing nothing today. So, yeah, I just want to let you know that.
That's a good size, 4 feet long. That's a good size.
It is a chunk of plastic that, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So anyway, this guy is a 90-year-old veteran. He lives in down by you, Kevin, down south there by San Diego, San Marino, San Domingo, whatever it starts with an M.
I don't know, bro.
San Montenegro, whatever the heck it's called down there. Something down in
San Marcos.
San Marcos. Thank you very much.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was real close, Dan. You had them close,
Hey, I don't know that city. Anyway,
Ah.
he lives down there. His son lives in Texas. His son got a hold of me because I've been posting all my planes. And, oh, you got to build this. Dude, I don't build subs, man. First word out of my mouth. I would love to, but I don't build subs. And then he says, well, it's for my father. I'm like, oh, here we go with the father thing. Okay, what's up with your father? Well, he's going to be 90. He served on board this. He helped design the patch. I'm like, dude, you are killing me to no end. So, like a Lolo, I said, yeah, sure. Just send me what you want. And he takes a picture of the sub. I'm like, okay, you want me to find that or what? Well, the USS Rock was a Gato class, Gato, however you say it. It was a Gato class submarine. One Gato class looks like them all. And there's only like 10 in the whole fleet of the Gato submarines. I picked out this one. I said, yeah, you're going to like this one. He goes, well, he has a mantelpiece about 3 foot long by about 5 foot wide. No problem. It'll hang off the edge. No problem. I don't want it in my house. So, yeah, I had fun with that. So I'm doing that right now. And when it's done, I will take pictures. But, man, it's woo. So,
You know,
yeah.
I had
Hey,
always
Gom.
said
Oh.
that men and women that served on submarines were a special breed.
Absolutely.
Special breed. And just like the movie you're watching Run Silent, Run Deep.
Yes.
I remember watching that movie, and
Yep.
was there another? Is it Red October? Isn't it another?
That's a good one, too.
Uh,
That's a more modern one. That's
I'm
Sean
sorry?
Connery. Sean
Uh-huh.
Connery.
The Russian commander was going to defect.
That's Sean
Yeah,
Connery,
you-
though.
Yeah,
You're right, Rosie. The Hunt for Red October. Yeah.
for Red October.
Say again, Rosie.
It was written by Tom Clancy. It was made into a
Yes.
movie
Tom
starring Sean
Clancy.
Connery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Tom Clancy. What an amazing.
Yep.
Amazing.
And
Writer.
I think Alec Baldwin played a supporting role in that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, he did.
Jack Ryan character.
Yep.
You know,
Well, Sean Connery's on there, though.
just
Oh, yeah, he was-
watching that.
Sean Connery.
I get claustrophobic
Commander.
even just watching that. You know, oh
But
my
see,
That's one of the movies where I've seen it a million times. But if it happens to be, if I had a whole, list of things to do for the day, and I happen to come across The Hunt for Red October on TV, that's it.
Yep.
If
That's
you're sitting down watching it,
Yep.
I love that movie.
And
Yeah.
Sean Connery played the Russian commander.
Sean Connery.
Yeah.
From what I
Sean Connery fan.
understand, to be selected for submarine, you have to go through a lot of psychological testing and
That's right.
thing.
That's right.
Can't have
Because-
claustrophobia.
You have to have a certain mindset and inner strength. Because a lot of people who want to be submarine they don't cut the mustard
Yeah.
Oh,
mentally.
yeah, yeah.
And also as
Definitely.
far as academics, in order to serve in a submarine, they take the brightest, usually the brightest people in the Navy, and
Right.
especially the ones that know electronics and all that. They only take the top people. And if you're first you got to go to nuclear school. Well, now it's nuclear.
Yeah.
Back when the Rock was commissioned, it was all diesel boats, but
Yeah.
now it's with the nuclear Navy. You gotta. So basically, when you go to nuke school, especially for electronics, it's an equivalent to an associate's degree that you get. They don't give you, an associate's degree, but it's an equivalent. And basically, from what my friends that served on boats that went through nuke school and all that, they said, the guys that fail nuke school, they end up, I don't know if it's true, but they said you end up just chipping paint for the rest of your Navy because they invest so much money on nuke school that was that a regular term is like 4 years of enlistment, but if you join the nuclear Navy, you're in there for 6.
Oh, yeah.
So I've encountered a lot of guys when I was working at in-house manufacturing for Rockwell, and whenever I interviewed guys that went through nuke school and all that, I really wanted them. It was almost, if there's a on their resume, it's like, okay, nuke school, U.S. Navy. Okay, I'm most likely going to hire this guy already.
It's
And
foot
sure
to the
enough-
door with that. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
a high class on your resume with that.
Yeah, because I noticed there was this one guy that there were 3 guys that I interviewed. One was from the Navy, nuke school and everything, and he retired. And not only nuke school, but he served on boats through his whole 25 years in the Navy. And then there was this one guy that was from the Colorado School of Mines, which is a great engineering school. Another one was from Cal Poly.
Wow.
You know, and when I interviewed and I was starting to ask all these technical questions, all these electronic questions and all that, the Navy guy he seemed like bored because it's like, this is too easy. And I said, I know what you're talking about, but I'm gonna ask the same questions to everybody. And he just answered it left and right. And then I had a little written test on this circuits and all that. And he goes, you know that you kind of wrote this circuit a little wrong. And I looked and I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're the first one to catch it. You know.
Wow.
And then, you know, the other guys that had bachelor's degree and all that, they were not up to par with this guy that was in the Navy. So whenever I saw U.S. Navy electronics nuke school, I'm like, it's almost guaranteed that they're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of the smart. That's right.
That's why I get my degree in electronics, and all those guys beat me out for the job.
Slow down there, Kevin. Slow down.
Yeah, no, for real. That's why I got my degree.
I had bosses that were in the, you know, that were on boats and stuff, and you know I remember my first supervisor. He was a career man on the Navy, and he at the end of the day he would always say the same thing. He goes, 16 empty missile tubes, mushroom cloud in the sky. It's Miller time.
That's great.
Oh man.
Yeah, that sounds like that kind of humor, right? They go, yeah, it's Miller time. It's Miller time.
They would always say stuff like he would always say, you know, there's 2 types of vessels in the Navy. I say, what do you mean? There's like carriers, just no, there's only 2. I say, well, okay, Ken, what are they? Boats and targets.
Yeah, military humor.
Yeah. And as Tuila said, you know, it takes a very special person that cuts the mustard to be able to make it. And someone who spends a lot of time cutting mustard is Wiedemeyer. Wiedemeyer.
You know, talking about cut the mustard, when Gomes said he had a 4-foot sub Memorial Day, he was doing a 4-foot sub. I said, how you gonna power that in one day? You eat all the time. Cut the mustard.
You know, Portuguese, come on now.
He started saying, I'm doing a 4-foot sub right now, Memorial Day. Shoot.
And make sure you just cut.
You know, until he started describing it, I'm thinking 4-foot sub from Subway.
See, you too, yeah, it wasn't just me. See, Gomes. Everybody think the same.
You know.
So how much is left?
Anna is watching this. She's just shaking her. She's just shaking her head. She's going, I don't know how I got in the middle of this.
And to say that, hey, but Stanley like, hey, I can finish them. You know, I can handle 4.5 feet.
Yeah. 4 and 8 inches. All this way. That's what it is. That long.
What is it? $5 foot long. So what cost you? $40.
Okay.
Stanford, Toshiro, we have a nephew that is now serving as in the submarine naval service.
Wow.
Yeah, he's right now in Livermore right now. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
North Cal. Yeah.
Silent service.
Shoot, I was growing up Pearl Harbor. That's why I grew up Pearl Harbor, and used to go down to the submarines all the time, you know. And we was little. I think it was like intermediate time that we practiced baseball on the base. That was a little league practice right on the base. So today, hey, we can get a tour. They took us on a sub one time. Took it in a submarine, walked around inside there, and yeah, it is small.
Yeah.
It is small inside there. You know, they couldn't take us to the high tech place, but they showed us the barrier where they sleep. You know, they just get like one shelf they can sleep on top of each, you know, the two shelves. Like the bugger's small, but yeah, my father was there for Harbor Time. My father's still alive too, and he don't talk about him too much, but he did say when he was little, he was coming out of church, and he grew up on Kli Valley, Kli Uka, but you know the lady in the mountain over there by Wilson Tunnel. That's there he grew up in over there. And he said when he's little, he's coming out of church, and you can see the planes. It came from the windward side, you know, over the mountain and down right through Kli Valley. So you can see them right there. So the buggers are so low, you can see the pilots in the plane.
Yeah.
So that's what he's saying. But like I said, he don't talk about them too much. But you know, that's basically what he's saying. Yeah. So he said then they heard the bombing and stuff. They'll go back to church, hang out over there until they can go home. But yeah, that's what he's telling me. But yeah, the Pearl Harbor. So yeah, they came over from the windward side that way, you know, and came over the mountain that side. So
you know, there is a sub down by Pearl Harbor. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's Skipjack or one of the famous names, and you can go on that as a tour. I can't remember the name of it. Bowfin, that's right. And Dad and I wanted to go on this. So I'm okay, Dad, you sure? Because he's claustrophobic and afraid of heights and all that good stuff, and doesn't even swim. So, okay, Dad, come on. He steps, and it was free at the time. You just go on and walk on, right? I stepped 1 foot on there, no problem. I'm going through the hatch, and, you know, being so slim that I am, I kind of like, you know, had to go, oh, wait. And then I was stuck between the freaking pipes. I'm like, okay. They pulled me through. My dad sees this behind me. He says, you on your own. I can't deal with this. And up the ladder he went. He was good. Because the smell, when you walk onto a diesel submarine, that smell is still there from 1940. It's still in that little cave. And you smell that thing. It's like, oh, God. And you get off the thing. You're like, your whole clothes, everything just smells like, oh. And it's a diesel that's like, oh. It's like, woo. But yeah, it still smells.
Behind a Greyhound bus.
Yeah.
Greyhound smells better.
Yeah. It goes away, but that one doesn't. Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised how small the sleeping area is. The sleeping area is so small. Like, how do you sleep in that? It's like a coffin almost where they sleep.
It's
and plus they hot too.
Yeah. Very. Yeah. Very. So yeah, it was that thing. And like I said, it's not like the big ones now. I've seen some pictures and it's got the missile tubes in there and there's guys running laps down. And they had a special on not the Smithsonian. And he was on a ship. They call him silent service. I think they were calling it. And he was a boomer. And he was running down the thing and he was doing laps inside the submarine. I'm thinking, and he stops and he goes, you know, we could have never done this in World War II. The guy goes, why? He goes, we didn't have this kind of room. Like, whoa. So yeah, some guys slept on the torpedoes and they were like, what? You got a small space. So, but by the time you get to your rack, you're just out. You're so tired. You just done. You don't care where you're putting it down. So,
well, you get to sleep into a warm rack because you tell the guy, get out.
Yes, you're next. That's right.
Rotate the bed.
That's right. Yeah, you're next. That's right. Yep. Yeah.
But you know, I was more impressed by the aircraft carrier than the submarines. My dad was stationed on aircraft. We did a tour for that. Those things are awesome, man. The way they take the plane off and all the planes is underneath where the wings they fold up, right?
Yeah.
They fold up the wings so they can fit. They got so many planes underneath. It's like, wow, you cannot expect that kind, but those suckers are big, the aircraft carriers.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah.
They said that if you eat the best food, it's on the submarines.
The subs.
Oh yeah.
Yep. All the fresh stuff is on.
and you get like hazard pay also.
Oh.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I like to say this. I think about it all the time, but I've lived in some momentous times as far as dates. At my age, of course, I was 2 years old, but I lived and my life encompassed two most important disastrous dates in American history: December 7th and 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
a lot of you guys maybe missed one of them, but when I think about it, I said, and also I lived, my roommate, when I was in my late 20s, middle 20s, was an atomic bomb survivor. He was a prisoner of war in Nagasaki.
Wow.
Wow.
And he survived the atomic bomb, and he said he was sitting down break time because they were labor, working for the Japanese cause or
Wow.
prisoners. When a bomb hit, a flash and a concussion, he said he ended up 20 feet away and his shoes came off.
Wow.
He asked the Japanese guard, "Hey, what happened?" And the Japanese guard said, because they already had bombed Hiroshima 3 days before.
Hiroshima.
Yeah.
So the Japanese guard said, exact words basically, America, America, big bomb, in broken English, America, America, big bomb, which was the atomic bomb, and he survived. Amazing, man. But those events, I think about it, I said, gee, man, how many guys survived, that personally survived an atomic attack?
Yeah, my classmate's mother was in Hiroshima, and she survived. A lot of her families initially survived, but she's the only one left that didn't die. Well, she passed away, but she didn't pass away. She did pass away from old age, but
Right.
all of her relatives passed away from cancer.
Yeah, right. Gosh. Anyway. Woo.
Crazy.
That's the stories you want to hear. The survivors from Hiroshima, like that. It's like, you wonder what it's like living there when that big bomb blew up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You cannot imagine that. Cannot imagine that right now.
He said,
nuclear bomb.
yeah, he said what saved them, the factory he was working to support the war effort for Japan, and he was a prisoner, like I said. It was something like here, and you're in San Fernando Valley, and the bomb went around here, but the bomb exploded in the air, right? But that kind of buffered it a little bit, but the thing was so strong that he flew 20 feet and his shoes came off. And man, but the thing is, you don't know what to expect, but when, now you and I in a 75 years later, but can you imagine a force like that hitting you for the first time? You don't know what it was, but they knew something about Hiroshima, but just 3 days, right? But man, he told me that story. I said, gee, you survived an atomic attack. Anyway, and the war ended after 5-6 years, and Americans rescued him. He lived through it, and he worked with me at Continental Airlines. But he was 18 years old when he was captured. He was in a Dutch army in Indonesia, which is East Indies, the Dutch as a colony of Holland. And he was in a Dutch army, 18 years old, and the Japanese attacked there. Manila, of course, they bombed Hawaii, they attacked Guam, they attacked Hong Kong, and they took him prisoner from Java, whatever island he was in.
Yeah.
Ship him back to Japan to work.
I went to the.
Larry, from what I understand, when the bomb hits, there's rings of percussion that go out for miles.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing.
When I went to Nagasaki, I went to the atomic bomb memorial.
Mhm.
Oh, it was. I had afterwards.
Yeah. It's just like back in the 50s, you guys remember, we all at the age where the kids had to practice in case there's an atomic attack by Soviet Union. But in the 50s, we really lived under the gun. Everybody thought something might happen, man. But still here, just hopefully everybody get common sense on it.
Well, I remember as a kid, Uncle, that we had Civil Air Patrol drills where you have to hide under your desk.
Right.
Like, if a real bomb hit, that would mean nothing, really, if something like that happened because of the percussion going along.
Right.
But that's what we all did. We all had Civil Air defense closets in the interior of our house, and we had rations and all sorts of stuff in the late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah. case you needed food after the.
You know, talking about stories that, I never knew anything about internment camps in Hawaii for
Had one.
Japanese nationals.
Honolulu.
After that, I learned nothing about that in school. I don't remember seeing anything about that at all. And it wasn't until maybe about 10 years ago, really, I became aware of that. What? Are you kidding me? You know, and so I began to do some little bit of a research on it, and there were 5 or 6 internment
Yeah.
areas.
Big Island.
And they're starting to, and I saw this online. There's a group of folks that are working at restoring some of these areas, some commemorations, some plaques, and things of that sort. But this was never discussed. It was never told. I never read about it. I never saw anything about it.
Nope.
It was kept quite, I don't know if it was kept secret. It just said I was unaware of it. Had you
No.
heard about the internment camps in Hawaii, you guys?
Yeah.
No, when I was a kid back
Yes.
then, I didn't know, but the emphasis was on California, more or less. But
Yeah.
in Hawaii, they were told, since the population was so big of Japanese in Hawaii, they say, hey, they can't do that there because they're gonna slow down the economy and the war effort. So anyway, but Honolulu, close to Eva, between Pearl Harbor and Eva, was one of them,
Right.
and that came up in Hawaii 5-0 one time. They brought that up in Hawaii 5-0, but we never knew about that.
When we were growing up.
But
Right.
There
My
was
dad-
one of the internment camps on the Big Island, because one of the gals that went to University of Hawaii, her dad, their family, they were moved to the Big Island to an internment camp.
So Sand Island was also another internment camp. But he also, but Sand Island had German prisoners also, and Honolulu also had Italian and German prisoners.
Exactly. Not
That's
just
what I was-
Japanese, but German.
That's
and
like I say.
Yeah,
They
and
had
a
German.
lot of the Japanese that were interned in the local internment camps were basically locals.
Yeah.
Only a few went to the mainland, but basically it was just people that were arrested in Hawaii.
Yeah. My
My
dad-
my neighbors that lived in the back of us, the ones that they came and uprooted all of his orchid plants, which was just like right outside our back door, just to make sure there wasn't any radio, anything. Well, they were moved to the mainland. He was somebody big in the Japanese community, and so I remember them moving. They had to be
Yeah.
moved to the mainland.
My father was telling me, well, he's telling me, the family, that he used to go visit his grandpa in an internment camp in Hawaii. His
Oh,
grandpa, because the Wiedemeyer is German, right?
right,
So-
right.
So-
So veil your papers, madam. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man. But no, my dad's grandpa was in one of those internment camps. That's why when Stanley said had Japanese and Italian and then German too. Yeah, it wasn't just Japanese that got
Right.
interned. So,
yeah, of course.
so yeah, so he was. My dad was telling me about that. He used to go visit his grandpa in the internment camp in Hawaii. So
My father's uncle, he was from Hawaii. He was living out here in LA when Pearl Harbor hit, and he was going to school at UCLA.
Wow.
And he got I think on the December 9th, he got picked up by the LAPD and got tossed into jail.
Yep.
Wow.
And then he asked, "What's the charges?" And they said, "Your color."
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, so he was in the LA City jail for like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Then they released him, but then the FBI interrogated him because he would go to Japan back and forth, and he had family. Well, he ended up joining the 442, and when he was at Camp Shelby, where they had the basic training for the 442, they found out that he was fluent in Japanese. He could read, write, speak. So he got moved from the 442 into the military intelligence unit.
Right.
And I remember sitting down. He ended up after he retired from the military and all that. He lived out in Pacific Grove in Central California, near Monterey. And I would ask him all these questions. I said, "Uncle, I hope you don't mind if it's too personal. You don't have to answer." He goes, "No, just go ahead. No one's really asked me." Wow. So I asked him, "Oh, so the original unit that you were in with the 442, how did they do?" He goes, "Well, it was a good thing that I didn't stay in that group." I said, "Well, why?" They had a 180% casualty rate. And out of the company that he was in, 90% passed away. Wow. Only 10%.
Yeah, remember that movie, the famous scene where the colonel or whatever said, "I want the guys all in the morning to be in formation." Formation. He came out and he said, "Captain, I told you I wanted to hold a battalion here." He said, "That's it. That's what's left over. The rest is wounded or dead."
Yeah.
The captain looked at him and he said, "Oh, man."
So the interesting part when he got into the MIS was he would occasionally interrogate Japanese prisoners, and he looked at these papers, this guy's papers and all that he was interrogating, and then he noticed, "Oh, this is a village I used to live in." And he looked at the name. He goes, "Huh, interesting." So he goes up to the guy, the Japanese prisoner, and he goes, "Whatever. Your father's name is such and such, right?" The prisoner's like, "Huh? And your mother's name is this. You have brother, sister. Your cousin's name is this. Wow. Your address is this." Wow. And then he goes, because it's not written in a record, all those kind of things, right? He just, name, rank, serial number, unit, whatever, right? But nothing real personal. And he goes, how do you know this?" He goes, "Oh, we're Americans. We know everything." And he goes, "And your childhood friends used to be," and he named off all these people. And now this prisoner is terrified because it's like, he goes, "Yeah, you can't keep any secrets, so you might as well just tell me everything." And then the guy was like, "How do you know this?" He goes, "You idiot, don't you recognize me?" When he was in Japan, he stayed at the same village. He used to stay for like a couple of years before he come back to Hawaii and all that. Wow. And so he used to play with this guy when they were kids. Wow. And he goes, "Don't you remember me?" And then he looks, and then he goes, "Look at my name." And then he looks and goes, the guy broke down crying. Wow. And he goes, "I can't believe we were childhood friends and now we're enemies." And he goes, "You're not my enemy anymore. You're here. You're a prisoner, but you're not enemy. I'm just here to question you." So the guy starts spilling everything that he knew, and then he goes, "Oh yeah, this is old news." "Oh, okay." but he would, when he would try to kind of look after him, make sure that he had like special care packages and all that. And he was telling me that a lot of the Japanese prisoners were really surprised because they were brainwashed, saying that, you're better off killing yourself with honor than being a prisoner for the Americans. The Americans would just torture you. They'll treat you bad, and he said all these prisoners were like feeling real comfortable and grateful that they got captured, because they're like, one of the prisoners said, "I'm so glad I surrendered because now I have food to eat." Yeah. And clothes and I can take a shower, I can stay clean, because they thought they were going to get killed.
Yeah, they reported a lot of false things about it. If you get captured by Americans, hey, if I was in a war and I was the enemy, the best thing can happen to me is that an American capture me. But last night had a good movie. You guys must have seen it before. 1949 or 50, Jeffrey Hunter. and to hell and back or whatever. He was in the Marines. Then he was watching it last night. I've seen it about 10 times, of course, but it's really poignant. But he was a Holly boy in L.A., and his mother was drifter, no good, addict and all that. So he was going to school with a Japanese boy, L.A. Coton. And then as the movie goes along, Pearl Harbor occurs. But before that, he went to the older brother of his classmate, said, you come live with us after he's seen the house in disarray. So he went to live with the family, and Mama San, their mother, kind of got close to him, and he loved her and all that. Then Pearl Harbor occurred. So everybody looked at each other and all that. So anyway, to come time to enlist, his classmate and older brother went down and joined the service, and they went to Italy, Italy, Germany, because, you don't want to send them against Japan. It would be confusing. So they went like the 442nd. And then he joined the Marines. But Mama San told him, don't worry who you fight. And he said, are you telling me that it's okay if I fight against Japan? She said, yes. She said, war. She gave some philosophy, but, they parted, and he ended up in Saipan.
Oh.
And you're talking about the propaganda and all that, don't let the Americans capture you. These civilians, kids, and I went there. I went to Saipan later on, of course, the suicide cliff, mothers with babies and kids jumping off cliffs because the Japanese soldiers and, told them, don't get captured by Americans. They're going to rape you. They're going to do this. They jumped off the cliff, man. And I seen that cliff. I stood 5-10 feet from it 30, 40 years ago. But the movie was very, very, it's a great movie, and it shows the compassion that you have for human beings. And yet, war is something that,
The gloves come off.
since the beginning of mankind, it's just tough.
Totally come off.
Yeah. But if you guys get a chance to do, some of us, you must have seen that movie, Jeffrey Hunter, But the thing is this, we have to somehow try to find a way where everybody can get along, but that's almost hopeless. When a pope says, let's pray for peace, or somebody says this, think about it, it seems like the nature of man is war.
It's like when Rodney King says, "Can't we all just get along?" And it didn't happen, right? So
Can't we all get along?
no, it's
Amazing, man. Every generation sees something almost.
Well, the beautiful thing about the generation that's on the porch is that we do get along, and that's the beauty of it all. That's the beauty of it all. In spite of the fact that Stanley has a
Hey, see, I knew it was coming. Slow down there. You better pull the chute right now.
Stanley has been working on a 4-foot-long sub.
20-degree flap before you land. I'm telling you right now.
He's almost
That
powered
wing
the
off,
sub
come on.
already.
And that Wiedemeyer understood that it was a submarine sandwich is amazing.
He Portuguese, that's why. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey,
And-
he still got 2 feet left. He still got 2
Oh,
feet
my
left.
goodness. Did you take the special with the chips and the drink, or was it just a sandwich?
There we go.
With the cookie.
Hey,
Got the one with the cookie.
Gotta get the cookie. Gotta get the chocolate chip cookie, you guys. Oh my goodness. Well, we come to the end of our time together. This has been so good. It's always good for the heart, good for the soul, good for the spirit. All of you always bring so much aloha, so much love, and mahalo for sharing your mo'olelo, yes, your laughter, your kolohe, and also some just great stories to share.
I have to share one thing. Dad being Iwo Jima, China Marine, Korea, and 3 tours of Vietnam. When we would go down to the Iwo Jima commemorative reunion for the Marine Corps vets, people would ask him, what was it like in Iwo? And Dad would say, noisy. He never talked about details until after they took Mount Suribachi and repaired the airfield. And he said, in the first plane that came in, the pilot got out of the plane and kissed the ground because he had run out of gas and he was flying in on fumes.
Wow.
They just finished laying those metal
Yeah, great.
airfield. That was my dad's job. And just as they finish, here comes the plane coming in, and he couldn't go around. He had to land right there because he had no fuel.
Yeah.
And he kissed the ground, and Dad said, that was the reason why we were there. That made it up. Then he understood why they were there.
Great story. Great story. Okay, class picture time. Oh, we're missing Rosie.
We'll see you now.
You need
Big-
to haircut this
Class
one?
picture.
Oh, she stay low. Try wait. She's a little low. Gotta wait.
Hey,
No.
get in.
That's all right. All of us can stand outside the bathroom door. No worries.
And then I have another story of Dad when he was a China Marine right out of.
Okay,
He left
hold
from
on,
Iwo
hold on,
to
Tuila.
China.
Hold on, Tuila, please. Just okay. There she is. Let's grab this right now on a count of three. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful, beautiful Memorial Day on the porch. So sweet. Love all of you. We're going to say aloha to you. And if anybody wants to stay for the after party, that's wonderful. But we say aloha to you, and we love all you guys. And we'll see you next time on the Sandwich Island Social Network on the porch. Aloha, everybody.
Aloha, everybody.
God bless America.